Oh, we've got a good one here for you on a Friday night. I hope you are settling in to watch because we are going to have Dr. Jeff Wilson. We've had him on the show before, but what I did not realize is Dr. Jeff Wilson is involved in the ostrich farm issue out in BC. So we got him back, and he's been a witness. He's done a lot of stuff with this. He's got a lot of information to go for us here, ready to go for us, I should say. Buckle in because we're going to cover everything you've been asking in the comments, from conspiracy theories to what the CFIA is doing to why the feeds were cut. It's all here. We're all talking about it. Dr. Jeff will join us in just a moment. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things. Welcome to the last word. Happy Friday, everybody. It's the end of the week, and boy, do we have a doozy for you. Obviously, this week it's been a big hot topic about the ostrich situation in British Columbia, and we are very lucky to have Dr. Jeff Wilson. He's president of Novometrix here with us today, but on top of that, Dr. Jeff has actually been an expert witness in two of the cases in two of the court sessions related to this case of the ostriches. So we're happy to have an expert witness on hand here. Dr. Jeff, you can hopefully clear up some of the things we're hearing about what's going on out there with the ostriches. A lot of people really, it's tugging on some heartstrings. It's made people angry. There's conspiracy theories flying all over the place. So Jeff, welcome. And I hope you're ready for this.
I definitely am as ready as I'll ever be, Chris, and thanks very much for having me.
No problem. And why don't we get started, just for the audience's purpose, to find out sort of your background, what Novometrix is, and why you're involved here.
So by training, I have three doctorates. One is veterinary medicine. I also have a doctorate in pathology with specialty in avian pathology, or birds. And I have a PhD in epidemiology, where I worked on zoonotic diseases for my PhD. I was a professor at the University of Guelph for 18 years. I was simultaneously cross-appointed to what's now the Public Health Agency of Canada. And I actually started what is now the Foodborne, Waterborne, and Zoonotic Disease unit for human epidemiology within the FAC. Novometrix, I started Novometrix in the early 90s when I became a professor. And we've worked very extensively with animal pharma, nutrition companies, federal governments, and so on around the world. So we have a good understanding of that. And about 10 years ago, I think you've heard this story, Chris, Novometrix pivoted from being primarily a technical consulting company to developing a model for bringing distributed networks together. So government, business, academia, the public, NGOs, bringing them together to solve wicked problems. Basically, we saw that the cause of most of these crazy problems, like everything from avian influenza to homelessness to addiction to the economy, are the result of siloing of people and organizations with no overarching way to manage all the moving parts.
And I think that's actually a good place to start. What are the components of effective? Because this started with avian flu. This didn't just start with culling ostriches and things like that. This goes right back to the ostriches were actually sick originally, right? And so, what is effective outbreak response here? Was this what happened here? Was this effective? Can you kind of give the audience an insight into that?
It's like an intensive process around extreme common sense. Is what it is. And there are a whole bunch of different layers to it that I learned when I did this training program, then was involved in a bunch of outbreaks. But during COVID, particularly, we started to see that a lot of people had no experience in this and were talking around the issue. And so I took my experience and a bunch of books and papers, and I created a thing that we call the pillars of outbreak response, which is like the high level wango-bango. How do you actually do an outbreak response? What distinguishes one that is going to work from one that is going to fail? And so the pillars are 4 pillars step one is building the right leadership team. It has to be inclusive and have the right players around the table. So they're all around the table. Everybody's in the tent, not on the outside, if you take my meaning. And you have the technical expertise around the table, not parts of it missing, which is one of the things that's happening with what we're seeing with influenza. So step one is absolutely to create the proper leadership. Pillar two is then with the right leadership team, which is inclusive and transparent and actually focused on solving the outbreak, not focused on other things like careers or political points or money or what have you, actually focusing on the outbreak. And that's basically pure leadership. The next thing is the data framework. So collecting the right information and data to figure out what's happening, what's causing this outbreak, what are the risk factors, what's working, what's not working, what are other people in other parts of the world doing that we could copy. Okay, so that information and data framework is critical. And then there's a bunch of data analysis that often happens to help figure out what's going on. And just as a sidebar, so what we're seeing with the current outbreak response, there is nothing that could be considered a proper leadership team, and there's nothing that could be considered a proper data framework. There's parts of a leadership team and there's some data, but not nearly enough to solve it. So the third thing is then what we call interventions, which are the things you start doing to resolve the outbreak, right? And so those have to be based on the evidence, not based on politics, not based on past things we did all the time, whether they worked or not, actually based on the evidence. And of course, the leadership team has to be around the table. And the final one, the fourth one, is communications. So the communications has to be, you actually have to bring the people to the table and communicate about how we're going to resolve this, right? Actually answering people's phone calls, coming to the table. And then with this leadership team, communicating to the public so the public can be engaged and actually understand truthfully what's going on, completely what's going on, understand what a proper outbreak response looks like, and become engaged in helping. So those are the four pillars. You can see what it is like a lot of people think an outbreak response would be, you come in and you say, okay, what you got to do is stamp out or you got to vaccinate. No. That's pillar three. That's the interventions after you get the right people around the table and you actually know what's going on. If you don't do that, almost invariably, you will choose interventions which don't work or are actually worse than doing nothing. Hopefully that
seems to be, yeah. I mean, going back to your first comments there about people around the right people around the table and that probably lacking here. What kind of conclusions have you drawn from this? We'll talk about your kind of expert witness side of this thing too shortly. But what have you drawn from all of this? I mean, you kind of said it there, but is there anything else you've drawn from this situation?
Yeah. I phoned a lot of people in the industry across Canada, so the industry and the government and church groups and all, and got their view on the lowdown on what was happening. A lot of this was not coming out in the media, and out of all of that, just from what people told me, and I knew a lot of these people, or I knew their roles, and I'm a pretty good judge of who's telling the truth. And what I got was this thing is completely off the rails. It's in a state of utter chaos, not from everybody, but certainly the overwhelming thing was, Jeff, this is out of control.
And does that surprise anyone at this point? I don't know if it really does, but when you talk about Universal Ostrich Farm, which is the one that's dealing with all of this, how did you become involved as an expert witness? What was kind of your sort of take on all of this? What has your group been doing? That sort of thing.
Novometrix, our company, we've been doing projects like this for a whole range of different issues going on 10 years or more. So people that I know in the world I live in, they're aware of the kind of things that we do. And a lot of them are now aware we're working on avian influenza. So I got a call, and we'd been watching the ostrich stuff, obviously, right? And so I got a call from a scientist by the name of Bonnie Mallard, who professor emeritus at University of Guelph. She told me they were having a meeting about this and could I join? So that's how I became involved. Because the other thing is what's often missing in these things is the epidemiology and especially the outbreak response experience. So they knew somehow Jeff's been involved in all sorts of outbreaks. Let's get him on the phone. So I got on the phone with a number of the scientists, and I think the initial one was a lawyer for the ostrich farm, as I recall.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, and obviously your involvement's been important in all of this. And, what are the next steps, do you think, for the Universal Ostrich Farm? Because obviously, they've had this stay. This order is not lasting forever, as we know. What do you think is going to happen next?
I'm very encouraged that in spite of all the roadblocks, the Universal Ostrich Farm has kept at it. Mm. And, standing up for their farm and for the right process, right? And so I'm very encouraged by that. And I've been in regular touch now with people like some senior people in the poultry industry in Canada. And I can tell you, in private conversations, they're now saying the ostriches almost certainly are not a risk to human or animal health. I think where we're going is to have an actual proper outbreak response with Universal Ostrich Farm being part of that as part of a national, and I think shortly binational, because we've been talking to the Americans. They're also very interested in how we do this. And I think it's going to be resolved. But I don't have a crystal ball. Like, who knows? I
want to go to some viewer questions for you before we go to the last one that you and I talked about, because I think some of this is interesting. Some of them are more on the conspiracy theory side, of course. Some of them are not. Some of them are just blatant concern for these birds. They don't care about the science side. They're just basically saying, I save the birds, and that's okay. That's why we want to answer these questions for everybody today. The first one I want to get into is around the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. We haven't really said too much about them right now, but they've clearly been very relentless in their pursuit of this. There's some talk that they haven't left the farm even with this stay, things like that. Why do you think this has gotten so out of control? Is this what's truly happening, first of all? And why do you think this has gotten out of control?
I had a conversation with a fellow who's a poultry veterinarian and a hatchery veterinarian. I won't say his name, but a very well-regarded, smart guy. So he said to me, Jeff, and I didn't know a lot about the politics or the statutes or any of that. I knew a bit, but not. And so he said, you got to understand what CFIA is doing isn't about protecting public health. And I spent, 18 years in facts. I go, it's not. Well, they have a mandate to protect public health. And he says, sort of. And this goes back for decades. There's been confusion and potential conflict of interest, not like people taking bags of money, but just different pressures on them to do certain things, right? So it's not about public health. And he said, it's not about animal health. And I said, it's not about animal health. And he said, no, it's not. It's not primarily about animal health, and it's not primarily about public health. And so he said, no, it's the primary thing. And I'm sure you've heard this. They're doing it to protect foreign trade of poultry products. And I went, interesting. That's weird. That's really weird. Like that's not what they seem to be saying. Or maybe I just assumed they were saying that, or maybe they're purposely not going there. Like, how would I know? Canada has trading relationships, of course, with various trading partners where we sell poultry products. And in that, there are agreements, some combination of agreements, norms, understandings about how Canada and other countries, trading partners, will deal with things like avian influenza. There are other, foot and mouth disease, avian influenza, African swine fever, these big, really bad diseases, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, as far as I know, there are those regulations. And I said, have you ever seen them? He said, no, I've never seen them. So I can't tell you what's in them. But I'm almost positive that's what CFIA is primarily responding to.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was, and it's not just what the rules or agreements are, it's what CFIA thinks they are. And it turns out the more we started to dig, it appears that CFIA's interpretation of the rules is not actually correct. Okay, so So I'm going, okay, then what happens is likely the whole poultry boards and so on, they're responding to what CFIA says. I can tell you there is a lot of fear amongst poultry producers and that poultry value chain because they know that CFIA can do some major damage to their business. Mm-hmm. It might not be on purpose, but they can do things like your birds. They can make your life miserable, right? And I'm just saying what people have told me, and from what I'm saying, yeah, I think that is true. It may be with the absolute best intentions of CFIA, but it's not working, and it's part of it has created this cloud. So no one will even come together to talk. Well, of course, the number one thing we got to do is the pillars of outbreak response. Well, the number one thing of that is bring together a leadership team, and people don't want to come to the table because they don't want to be right. So it is, with due respect to everything, it is like a comedy of errors. It's like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. It's chaotic. It doesn't mean people are stupid. It's a whole series of misunderstandings, right? And so then last night, as we're getting ready for this call today, so Treasure, who's one of my colleagues and all this, she's very good on artificial intelligence, like very good. So she did another scan asking it about, so who in Canada has responsibility for outbreak response for animals? Well, it's very clear on humans. It's very clear that is the Public Health Agency of Canada at the national level. That is very clear. And how to do that is very clear as well. Like in Walkerton, the actual process, what it is the pillars of outbreak response. Well, so in asking in this scan, what came back was no agency at the federal level in Canada, none have as their mandate to do outbreak response. And you go, what? What?
Wow.
What? And we haven't looked into Ag Canada and the others, but what it appears to be is CFIA has a mandate when they believe there is one of these foreign animal diseases or related things to go in and test and then slaughter. They have no mandate to build a proper leadership team. They have no mandate to collect the right data and analyze it to find out what's causing the outbreak. They have no mandate to evaluate other interventions other than stamping out, and they have no mandate to communicate this transparently and clearly.
Wow.
And so you go, well, that would certainly explain a lot of things. It could easily be that those people in the hazmat suits on that farm actually believe, and it becomes then a cultural thing, right? And it's never challenged, that they're there thinking, look, guys, this is a tough job, and I know some of you are getting death threats and all this kind of thing, but we're the last thing standing between Canada and avian influenza Armageddon. And the people go in and I go, that would make total sense. So I believe at this stage, that's the sort of thing that's happening. And so that's why we're now reaching out to people to say, look, this looks to be a comedy. It's the wrong term, but you get the idea.
Yeah, it's basically Trump derangement syndrome that we've been talking about, but it's ostrich derangement syndrome, or the breakout derangement syndrome, basically.
Totally.
And we have varying levels of commenters, and they're all fantastic. But there have been conspiracy theorists who have gone as far as to blame pharma companies like Moderna for this. Mm-hmm. Do we have any inkling or sign that is something that could be going on?
With due respect to all our friends and colleagues in pharma, and frankly, clients over many years, because we have lots of people in the animal pharmaceutical, especially, who have been amazing clients, and we've had these kind of discussions with them. So I can tell you, it's unthinkable to me that major vaccine companies are not having discussions with senior CFIA and senior federal government. It would just, like, they have to. They've invested, millions and millions of dollars into products, and they have to actually talk to people about how they could be used. So I'd go, and that's just normal business, and it's essential for the wheels of commerce, and also to get the right products created, because the government doesn't create vaccines generally. We rely on industry. So it's a critical thing, but it's how you do it and what's the intent.
I agree. Do you feel like there's any reason, at least from your perspective and what you know about pharma, for them to be pushing the cull of these birds?
To me, without evidence, that seems a bit of a stretch in this particular one. On the other hand, they wouldn't need to push for the cull in order to be, even if they were evil, which I've met, and these folks are not evil. If they were to do it, it would be highly unlikely they would even if they were evil, you wouldn't push for a cull because it'd be a little bit obvious, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, it's possible. There's all manner of things that are possible, but I don't think, I honestly try to stick to what I actually know or I can infer, and then just say, here's what I'm kind of guesstimating. So
yeah. And I don't mean to dig at this and put you on the spot, but the only reason that one of the reasons I say that is, of course, the shutting down of the feeding feeds. Before most of this happened, or while most of this was happening, the feeds were, you could live feed the feeding of these birds, and even though CFIA feeding them and everything else, now all of a sudden they're being shut down. Mm-hmm. You get this question of whether pharma is involved in that, and they may not be, as you say. But it's odd. It's odd to shut down those feeds now all of a sudden. Some people accusing them of potentially trying to poison these birds secretly, so they just start dropping off on their own. I don't know about that either. Again, we're starting to get into wild theories. But is that something, like, what would be your thought on why they would even shut these feeds down? Just because this is getting out of hand, or is there something else going on?
I would say, again, I'm guesstimating, but I'd like, my sense would be, if you were CFIA and you believe this had to go forward, and you felt it was an absolute duty to get these birds slaughtered, and you felt you were on the side of the right, I'm not even saying all of them think that, because I'm not a mind reader, right? But it would make, no matter where they're sitting on that, it would make total strategic sense that they would do whatever they could so that people couldn't see the slaughtering of the birds, because it's a PR nightmare for CFIA and for the Liberal Party and for Mark Carney, right? My kind of thing is, we don't need to go there. Let's resolve this. If you see, I believe if we go through all the thing with transparency, with the right experts, independent and from around the world, and the public is involved in this transparently, and we discover, look, these birds are actually a desperately serious threat to public health, I think average Canadians would go, okay. And I would, like, if I just want to see the data. And I know it's an emotional issue, so different listeners might have different reaction to that statement. but if they're a serious public health threat, I'd go, yeah, but let's do this intelligently, right?
Exactly.
And I personally don't think they are at all if they're a serious health threat, because I've seen the initial data, right? And so,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing some really good involvement from communities in this. And this is where I kind of want to wrap it up on a positive of what you do. We saw our indigenous communities in the area really come to play into this, especially the stay order. First of all, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, this is basically heroics at this point for the community to come together, our indigenous communities to come together to get this stay. I know it's a short-term stay. People keep saying that in the comments. It's only till October 3rd or whatever the date is. But this was the community, in particular, indigenous communities coming together, wasn't it, to help get this stay put into place?
I think it's a really good thing to have indigenous communities involved in this. All things being equal, that sort of presupposes that the intentions are good and all that kind of stuff, which I have every reason to believe they are. Right. So I would say, I think it's a really good idea for them to be involved. So part of it is, my reason for that is, and again, all this, I may be wrong, but this is what I'm seeing, that we are in this chaotic state where the stamping out policy and the ostrich thing it's not working for us. We have to do a pause on this so that people can come together, take a deep breath, maybe have a glass of wine, and then come together with the right people and let's think about what we're doing kind of objectively. And so bringing in First Nations, or First Nations stepping in, I think it creates part of that window, right? And of course it's political. That's what it is. But I kind of go, at this stage, I think CFIA could really use a breather, and this is going to give them a, kind of a breather and a lifeline, if you will, right, of how to afford. And so all things being equal, I think it's a good thing. It has to be done properly. It can't be just political. I would say I would love, as we're building out these leadership teams, to have people from those communities come and we learn from their perspective, and they become part of the process. I think it's quite possible that in sorting out like outbreak response at this level, and I'm not an expert in this, but it seems to me it resonates with sort of indigenous justice, like coming together and talking about this, passing the healing stick or whatever it is. No disrespect to anybody, but and I think in principle, First Nations communities could help. We could learn from them, they could learn from us, and it could be partly a focus for national healing about those kind of relationships. So I'd go, but it's all about managing it properly, not massive drama, not massive positioning, not, you know what I mean?
And I think, sorry to interrupt you there, but I think that the sort of, to kind of spin to the last take I want to get from you on this is, sort of circling back to what they're going to do to wait this out. So I guess I'm trying to put this in the right phrase. I don't mean to stumble all over myself, but I just don't want to be, I don't want to be too tough on this. But my concern is that this will be something they just simply wait out and then try to call these birds next week. Do you think, or better put, people that are watching right now, what can we do to push that we get the pillars in place, that we get the leadership in place, that we use this time during the stay not to just wait out the stay, but to make this happen so that there's extra added data that's accurate, to enforce getting the information that is needed to potentially save these birds. What can we do watching this to push this?
See, what I see happening is this is opening up a doorway. So for this kind of issue and other issues, we can actually engage the public, and different members of the public will want different levels of engagement. Some will want to go out to ostrich farms. Some will want to vote. Some will want to phone their MP. So there'll be different things, but we're lining up to engage the public with business, government, and so on, to be part of the solution, to actually become engaged in it, right? And understanding outbreak response and being part of it in a whole bunch of different ways, right? But that's going to take some time, and there's a management process to do it, right? You can't just wave a magic wand. It takes some time. So in the short term, I would say, for what I would love is for as many people as possible in Canada to understand the pillars of outbreak response, and start talking with your friends who you think won't be triggered, your family members, and just start talking about, hey, most people actually are not triggered by the ostriches. COVID's another story, right? But they actually, most people, it's a place where we can talk about it. And so to understand what it's about, learn about it, and share it. And there'll be more about that, about how to learn more. Like, we're involved, and now we're reaching out to other players like the marketing boards and politicians and universities and so on to get better ways to share the information. Yeah, you can point your fingers at politicians or CFIA or whatever, poultry producers. In actual fact, ordinary citizens, we're part of the ecosystem. We're complicit in this to the extent that if we've kind of dropped the ball, we've become cynical about politics. So it's real, and to sort of start contemplating that. So, and then the other thing I would say is, politely email or phone your member of parliament, regardless of whether you agree with them or anything. Just say something like, I saw Jeff Wilson on Chris Baker's podcast. I need you to start doing the pillars of outbreak response. That's actually would be extremely helpful. So hopefully that's helpful, Chris.
This is great, Jeff. Thank you so much for doing this. I just want to make sure there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that are watching this that have heard, there's ways to get involved, and some of them will still be confused as to how to do it. Obviously, you seem like a great leader in this whole idea and this whole getting involved with the ostriches, but not just the ostriches, but getting involved in all of this management of outbreaks. How can they do it? Can we put your email in the description and people can reach out to you? I don't want to bombard you with things, but is it okay if we give some contact information in the description?
Yeah, please do. Put my email up there, and happy to talk to anybody who's interested.
Excellent. That's awesome. So there you have it. You can actually get a hold of Dr. Jeff Wilson as well, and just see if there's anything you can do to help out these ostriches, or even just get more informed on the whole situation. I think that's important as well. Jeff, I'm very, very appreciative of you doing this today. I know this is a hot topic. It's a hot button topic. There's definitely different sides to it. And, there's a lot of people who wouldn't have done this interview. So I appreciate you doing it.
Well, you're very welcome. I really appreciate it. I'd like to mention like 3 people who have been amazing in this.
Absolutely. Please do.
So one is a guy by the name of Harvey Sasaki, he's in Victoria. Harvey was the president of the BC Chicken Marketing Board. He was also, before that, I believe, a deputy minister of agriculture in BC. He's retired now. He's been unbelievably helpful in helping us to reach out to other people in the industry. So Harvey is amazing. And there have been many people, but these ones particularly. 2 politicians, Scott Anderson from the Vernon area, absolutely amazing, and our own member of parliament, federally here in near Guelph, Michael Chong, amazing. because people like to dump on politicians, right? So I go, these two guys have been amazing. And the other is the two major commercial poultry publications, which in Canada is Canadian Poultry Magazine and globally is World Poultry Magazine, have been incredibly supportive of this. And actually, it's taken some courage because they're talking about new stuff and taking a stand on coming together to actually fix this. So anyway, we a lot of this depends on people scratching each other's backs. So I go, all these people have been amazing. So I'm very happy to acknowledge their help.
Well, we extend our thanks to them as well. I think that's important to have everybody who's really pushing on this to be acknowledged. So I appreciate you mentioning those names, and I certainly appreciate you being on this show. So we'll get this out shortly. Obviously, this is the last word for Friday, so this is an exciting time for us to put this out because it's a great time for everybody to kind of grab a glass of wine, watch, and really educate themselves on this issue. So I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Well, everybody, thanks to Dr. Jeff Wilson as well. Don't forget that his email is in the description if you want to get involved a little bit more. You don't have to do it through Dr. Jeff. You can also just do it yourself. But certainly, if you need more information, send him an email. This has been a great episode. Again, just be careful what you listen to, be careful what you watch, and try to look for the experts like Dr. Jeff so that you can get fully informed on these issues. For Dr. Jeff, I'm Chris Baker. Thanks so much for watching Bakes on Things, The Last Word. Happy Friday again, and we'll see you again on Saturday morning.